Hey, what's up guys? It's Joe from GadgetryTech.com, and today I'm driving the 2016 Lexus RC 200T F Sport. The 200T stands for a 2-liter turbo. The F Sport is an additional package you can get on this car. So let's start off with the basics. For just over $40,000 you can get an RC 200T. That has a 241 horsepower engine, 258 pounds-feet of torque, and that hits the ground with an 8-speed automatic rear-wheel drive transmission. There are no other options on the 200T. It's always rear-wheel drive, it's always an 8-speed. So, performance, 0 to 60 in 7.3 seconds, and that is due to the weight a little bit. The car weighs just over 3,700 pounds, so it's quite heavy. And part of that is because of how it's built. The chassis is incredibly stiff, so I'm not going to take away about how it feels on the road. But the weight comes from a Lexus GS front end with a Lexus IS convertible midsection and an IS sedan rear end. And all of that's put together to make one chassis. So whenever you have a lot of retrofitting and let's say customizations, if you will, to make that all work, the weight goes up a little bit. And I think part of that was due to the fact that this car could have been a convertible and they were planning for that in advance. It's a lot easier to just chop off the roof and have the chassis still support all the weight rather than re-engineer it just to make it a convertible. So, how does it feel? Considering how heavy it is, and when you really push it, you can feel the weight a little bit, but the way the suspension is set up on this car is incredible. I mean, it's dampened really well, it isolates well, and what that means is if the road gets a little crazy and you're hitting bumps and you're kind of pushing it more towards the limit, the right front tire takes a bump, it's going to absorb and handle that well enough where the left doesn't get unsettled or uneasy. And why that's important is you get a lot of driver confidence because you feel like the car is still planted, so that's huge. And you'll get that across all of the RCs. Now this is the F Sport model, and what you get with the F Sport, in addition to all the base stuff we already covered, is a more aggressive front bumper. You get the better steering wheel, the better seats, driver selectable modes. So you get Eco, Normal, Sport, Sport S and Sport S Plus. Sport S Plus does a few things. It's going to make the steering feel more alive, more firm, sport, if you will. The ECU, or the computer for the engine, is going to hold out the revs longer. So if you're driving through a country road like what I'm doing, let's put it in Sport Plus. It's not going to go to the highest gear because it wants that throttle response to be there. That way, if you come out of a corner and you hit the gas, you're not waiting on the car. The car is ready to serve you, if you will. So yeah, better, stiffer suspension, better steering feel, better acceleration, just in the sense that it's holding out the gears and keeping the revs higher. So additional options. Now this particular one crosses the $50,000 threshold. That's because it has a limited slip differential. It has the blind spot monitoring, the parking assist, which I'll get into those in a moment. It also has the Mark Levinson sound system, navigation, heated ventilated seats, the works. It's pretty much decked out. Now I can't imagine buying an Lexus RC without the F Sport package, because the F Sport it even gives you better brakes. Let's cover that. 13.2-inch rotors up front with a 4-piston caliper, which is awesome because this car has some weight to it. Having that extra brake size really helps for absorbing heat and giving the pads more torque to go with as far as clamping down on the tires. So upgraded brakes as well. Now for 50 grand, like I said, I would prefer the F Sport because if you're buying a performance coupe, you kind of want more performance. So why not spend an extra few $1,000s and get all the extra tidbits and features that are designed to make that experience that more thrilling. So let's put it in a manual mode here. This is a 2-liter turbo, so there's a little bit of lag down low, but I'm at 3,500 RPM, so this should be next to nothing. Let's hit the gas for a second. So you can see it picks up quick. Now, there is a volume button on this engine. Because it's a 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, and Lexuses like to be very quiet and well-mannered on the road, you're not going to hear much inside the engine bay. So they give this little volume adjustment to kind of boost that. Now I'm in Sport Plus with that on, so let's hit the gas again, and then I'll turn it off and hit the gas again with the volume turned down. You can see the difference. So that's on. Let's try it again. Big difference. Now I'm going to try to turn it on or turn it up while I'm driving. You can hear the difference now. So it's kind of funny. I mean, it sounds pretty natural. It's fake, so I get it if you're an enthusiast and you don't want to be driven crazy by the fact that it's not real engine sounds, then get the V6. If I didn't tell you it was there and you didn't know it was there and it was already turned up, you'd think it just sounds like a really good 4-cylinder. It is all coming from the front. You're not hearing any exhaust noise from the back. So naturally with an exhaust, this would sound even throatier. So let's talk about the safety tech. I mentioned the blind spot and the parking assist. The blind spot's really cool because it's not just if they're in your blind spot. For one, if they're in your blind spot, it's solid orange. If your blinker is on in that direction, it'll start flashing at you saying, don't switch lanes, you dummy. You're about to crash into somebody. Now, if I'm in traffic, which I was earlier, let's say I'm doing 5 miles an hour in traffic, someone's coming on an on-ramp, they're probably approaching at 40 miles an hour because they're trying to get ahead of everybody. Even though they weren't in my blind spot, I could see them clear as day on my passenger side view mirror. It's still lit up. It told me don't change lanes right now because the speed differential from my car to theirs is too dangerous, which is cool. A lot of cheap blind spot systems only light up if they're in your blind spot. This one uses the radar technology to actually augment that and tell it, say, hey, they're approaching at an unsafe speed, please don't change yet, just wait. So that is incredible. Parking assist is nice if, you know, this car's got a fairly large front end and a small rear window, so naturally parking it in tight spaces, if you're trying to go in a parking garage, back it up into things, stuff like that, it'd be kind of nice to know where it is. So this will beep and tell you if you're getting too close, and those beeps change in duration and how fast they're pulsing, if you will, so you know if you're getting really, really close. All right, so let's talk quickly about the engine differences. Now, you have the RC200T and the RC350. The cars themselves are very, very similar, both in trim packages, price, and even weight. It's actually the base versions of both are within 50 pounds of each other because even though the 4-cylinder is a smaller engine, you have a turbo and an intercooler that adds weight and all the piping that goes with that. So what are the differences in driving dynamics? Now, the V6 sounds better naturally. It has a nice 3.5 liter 6-cylinder engine, and the intake manifold's tuned really well to make a sweet sound when the RPMs build. The 4-cylinder has a lot of character because it has a little bit of lag. You get on it and you hear that. You can hear that blow-off valve. So there's a little bit of boost. This makes 17 pounds of boost at full boost, so it really builds up some air inside that engine, and that's what helps give you the low-end torque. So the advantages of the V6, though, if you're driving in very hot weather consistently, and you're in a lot of stop-and-go traffic, let's say you're in downtown LA, I would much rather prefer the V6 because there's a lot better throttle response. Even though it makes less peak torque when the turbo is fully boosted, the V6 has more torque readily available the second you hit the gas. So if you're trying to pull out into traffic, out of a parking lot, an intersection, whatever, you don't have to wait for the turbo to help you. It just goes. And the 0 to 60 time is significantly faster. I mentioned before the 4-cylinder is 0 to 60 in 7.3 seconds. The V6 is 5.6 seconds. So that is quite substantial when the RPMs get up there, and a lot of that power is still available down low, so it's a bit more grunt. Now, if you live in high altitude, some of that performance goes away because the V6 is not turbocharged. It just sucks in whatever air is available. If you're in Colorado, there's not a lot of air available, so you make a lot less power. A turbo, because of the way they work, is always going to push, in this case, 17 pounds of boost into the engine bay, so you don't get a performance loss. So you might get more turbo lag because there's less air to spool it initially, but if you're looking for a similar performance, the 4-cylinder will actually closer match the V6 in places like Colorado, but then you get the added benefit of fuel economy. So I really want to point that out because there's a couple of huge pros and cons to both. If you're a car enthusiast and you want to modify the engine, sure, the V6 is faster, but if you like sounds the engine makes, a turbo 4-cylinder with an exhaust upgraded blow-off valve, the intake pipe, you know, to hear everything. This is going to give you a lot more of an experience and an audible standpoint, not raw performance. I noticed that the you know, the traffic fuel efficiency, even though it is better on the 4-cylinder, it's not substantial. The big difference comes on the highway, where the 4-cylinder kind of just sips gas and you can make long commutes out of it. So those are the biggest differences between the engines. I prefer the V6 because this car does weigh quite a bit, and you really, you know, if you're buying a performance car and you want to feel like it's really, you know, a real performance car, the V6 is going to give you a lot more horsepower to work with. So in conclusion, it's pretty obvious I still like this car. There are a couple little things I can nitpick. I wish it was a few hundred pounds lighter, especially in the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder models, because I feel like that weight would go a long way. The HVAC system can be a little temperamental, but it's certainly manageable, and the infotainment system looks slightly dated, but it works well. Everything else on this car, however, is excellent. The handling is top of its class as far as how you feel on the road, just swerving left and right, the way it absorbs the bumps, the way you feel planted and connected. There might be other cars that are faster in raw performance, but for a novice driver, if you're starting to push the car more towards the limits, some cars tend to, you know, dance around, and the back end kicks out, and it's just harder to control, and you feel less confident in your ability. Lexus has found a way to make it extremely fun to drive, but very accessible. So if you're not a pro driver and you like to have fun on a windy road or just get a spirited drive, you feel very confident in a car like this, which in turn makes you drive faster. I don't know if that's a good thing, but if you're on a racetrack, it certainly is, because you can put down faster lap times with the fact that you're not scared you're going to crash because you can't control a slide or something like that. So that says a lot on how well they've tuned the car. This 4-cylinder is incredibly smooth. It feels like a smaller V6. It doesn't feel like a 4-cylinder. There is some noticeable turbo lag from a dead stop, but aside from that, everything else is excellent. The looks, I've never really said on any prior reviews that it looks great or it doesn't, because it's all a matter of preference. I like the Lexus body style. Some people do, some people hate it and they prefer the German body style, or even domestic like Cadillac, you know, Ford, stuff like that, or Lincoln, I should say, for comparing here. I do like the styling. I mean, it's a head turner. The RC is not a popular car right now because it's so new. So anytime people see it on the road, a lot of them tend to look at it. And it's pretty captivating. There's a lot of aggressive lines, and you get that mean front end that is common with all of the F-Sport Lexuses. So it has the looks, it has the handling, the power is there. You know, again, a little bit heavy, but you're not going to feel that every single day when you're driving. You're cruising around in traffic, you're going to work, whatever you have to do. But I can't really pick anything apart. Again, you have 3 different options to choose from at Lexus: the 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, V8, and on the V6 you can get all-wheel drive. So there's really an RC for any particular need you may have. If you're in the market for a 2-door, I certainly suggest trying it out. It starts at $40,000. It can top out over $70,000 if you get the RCF with the V8. But overall, the body and the interior looks and feels very similar. So you're not giving up much. You just kind of pick out the one that's right for you. With that being said, I'm going to start driving this car home. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or post a comment below, and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.